Okay, then we have here the RBC Preservation. So, it's very important here that when you are collecting the blood for the donor and put that one in the blood bag and try to put here the unit of blood in the blood bank ref, you need to ensure that you're able to preserve well here the unit of the blood up to the time of the expiration. In order for that, then once you try to transfuse the unit of the blood to the recipient, that unit of blood transfused to the recipient is still viable. Mas nabing viable here, so buhay dapat siya para makorek ang problem ni recipient. Like for example, kung ang recipient mo ay sinalinan mo ng blood because anemic ang patient, dapat pag sinalin mo ang dugo, buhay ang dugo na galing sa ating donor in the blood bag para mag-increase ang hemoglobin ni patient para makorek ang kanyang anemia. That's why you need to preserve well here the unit of the blood. What are the criteria for you to check here the viability of or the good preservation of your RBC in the blood bank ref? Pag whole blood tayo, okay, you try to store that one in the blood bank ref at a temperature of 1 to 6 degrees Celsius. Okay, number 1, you should have here 75% of the unit of the blood here or the RBC should be viable here 24 hours post-transfusion. What do you mean by that one? Dapat 24 hours after you try to transfuse the unit of the blood, 75% of the RBC are viable or buhay pa 24 hours. And they are all functional. Although you can measure naman ang viability nito, you could have, before you try to transfuse the blood, so from the donor, bibigyan mo siya ng or itatag mo ang unit ng blood ng patient by giving him radioactive substance para ma-measure mo ang radioactivity. Again, it should be 75% viable here, 24 hours post-transfusion. Another criteria for the good preservation should have here less than 1% free hemoglobin. Kung sinabing less than 1% free hemoglobin, so it would signify here na walang masyadong nag-rupture na RBC, wala masyadong nag-hemolyze. So pag madaming nag-rupture more than 1%, so that would signify here na of course, madaming nasira ng mga RBC, and that would mean na hindi tama or hindi effective ang ating preservation. Then we have here the biochemical changes, or you call this one as storage lesion, that occurring here in the unit of the blood once you try to store that one in the blood bank ref. So the first one, preservability here. So starting from the time you try to collect the blood, up to the time you try to transfuse the blood or being stored in the blood bank ref. So number 1%, viability here nagdi-decrease. So the glucose level also try to decrease kasi diba, you are already taking the blood na sa katawan ni patient. Another one, the ATP try to decrease. Oxygenation curve, since bumababa ang ating 2,3 DPG, because we try to, again, store that one in the blood bank ref or the blood bag. So that will shift here your oxygenation curve to your left. For the pH, it would have your decrease, nagiging acidic lalong ating pH. And that also would have here because of increased lactic acid. Then for the potassium, ammonia, and hemoglobin, tumataas ang level nila is because again, some of the RBC has already ruptured. And therefore increasing the concentration of that in your plasma. So try to take note of these biochemical changes. For the sodium, so decrease ang level ng sodium natin. Okay, then we have here the different anticoagulants used here as the anticoagulant of our blood bag. The first one, we have here the acid citrate dextrose. We have also here the phosphate the acid citrate dextrose, citrate phosphate dextrose, citrate phosphate double dextrose, and we have your citrate phosphate dextrose plus your adenine. So your ACD, CPD, CPD2D will have your 21 days expiration, whereas your CPD-A1 with the adenine would have your 35 days expiration. So what's the rationale here why you have your acid citrate dextrose, why you have here your citrate phosphate dextrose? So it's been noticed here that once before they tried to use here the ACD as your anticoagulant for the blood bag, and they have noted here that after 1 week of storage, nag-decrease agad ang 2,3 DPG. dapat, di ba, pag nag-store tayo ng blood, dapat ma-maintain ang level ng 2,3-DPG. Kasi pag mabilis siyang bumaba, that would also equivalent na mamamatay na ang RBC natin. Whereas your CPD, your citrate phosphate dextrose, on the other hand, so it would have here a significant reduction of your 2,3-DPG only on the second week of the storage. So we have here the main components of your blood bag. Okay, so number 1, meron siyang citric acid or citrate. Citrate here in the form of your citric acid or your sodium citrate. So ito yung pinaka-main anticoagulant natin. We try to chelate your calcium. That's why hindi siya nagkaklat. Another one contains also here monobasic sodium phosphate. It's needed here for the maintenance of your pH and your 2,3-DPG para maging viable ang ating unit of the blood. And third one, we have here the dextrose. The dextrose here is substrate for your ATP production para tataas lalo ang ating ATP or more ATP will be produced here. Okay, number 1, number 2, and number 3 are all components of these different anticoagulants. Meron, lahat ng ito, ng mga anticoagulants, meron silang number 1, 2, and number 3. For the number 4, for the adenine, so adenine here is used for the production of your ATP. And this is it's adenine only here found in your CPD-A1. Okay, that's why because of your adenine added to this one, from 21 days, it tried to expand its expiration here up to 35 days. Kaya medyo matagal ang kanyang expiration compared to your ACD, to your CPD, and then compared also to your CPD-2D. Okay, then we have also here again the concentration of the adenine added in your CPD-A1. So that's 0.25 micromolar plus would have an additional 25% na glucose that would differentiate this one with other anticoagulants. Then we have here 2,3-DPG status here in the stored na blood. So again, remember that when you try to store the blood bank ref, and then that one is the blood bag, 2,3-DPG level here try to decrease. However, here, once you try to transfuse the blood in the recipient, so the 2,3-DPG level tend to regain its status. Or I mean to say, try to regain here its level. Kailan siya mag-regain o mag-increase ng kanyang level once you try to transfuse the unit of the blood to the recipient. So, normally, it could reach here or able to regain its status after 24 hours post-transfusion. But it was then noted na in some cases, within 6 hours, pwede niya ulit ma-regain ang kanyang energy to 3-DPG. This is 6 hours after transfusion to the recipient. Okay, then we have here the different factors which try to limit the viability of your stored blood. The first one, we have here your, again, pag whole blood, okay, the type of the preservative. So, pag sinabing preservatives, we're talking about the type of the anticoagulant. So, the type of the anticoagulant in the primary blood bag determine here the expiration. Like your ACD, CPD, CPD-2D, would have a 21 days expiration. CPD-A1 would have 35 days expiration. Once all of that one is being stored at 1 to 6 degrees Celsius. Second one, we have here your 2,3-DPG status. Then we have here the pH. Another one, we have here the type of the plastic container. We're talking about the materials ng blood bag natin. So, most likely, ang blood bag natin, ang material na ginagamit sa kanya ay PVC or your polyvinyl chloride. The polyvinyl chloride contains this chemical substance, diethyl hexylphthalate, na nagli-leach siya from your plastic bag, pumupunta sa plasma, nagko-combine sa lipids in the plasma para mag-protect sa ating RBC here para hindi siya mag-hemolyze. The problem with the PVC, very sensitive sa cold temperature. So, be careful here pa nag-store tayo ng unit ng blood in your blood bank ref kasi diba cold temperature siya, may tendency na madali siyang masira ang PVC. We could also have here other plasticizer na materials in the form of your polyolefin. Pero ito kasi wala siyang diethyl hexylphthalate. So, medyo mas okay itong PVC natin. The next one, we have here the additive solution. We could also incorporate or add additive solution with our unit of the blood. Additive solution has been developed here by Wetler and implemented by Lovric in Australia. So your additive solutions includes the following commercial name. We have here the AS1, that's your Adsol, AS3, that's your Nutricell, your AS5, that's your Optisol. So if your blood is being collected or being added with an additive solution, expiration could be expanded to 42 days. So medyo mas matagal siya compared with your CPD-A1, which is your 35 days. What more pa sa mga ACD, CPD natin. Another one, the difference here, the primary blood bag anticoagulant, okay, utilized here with your AS1 or content is your CPD. Your AS3 is your CPD2D, and for the AS5, that's your CPD. Okay, so additive solution, the main chemical constituents of that includes the following: SAG or your saline, adenine, plus your glucose. In the case of your AS1 saka AS5, aside from this one, it also contains mannitol. But in the case of your AS3, it contains here the SAG plus your citrate and phosphate. The addition of the mannitol, citrate and phosphate also help here prevent hemolysis. Okay, so we have here additive solution. So additive solution is being added only to your unit of the blood after your removal of your plasma. So like when you're doing here the component preparation, diba, after a light spin centrifugation, diba, you could have your PRBC and you have your plasma on the upper portion. All you need to do is just remove the plasma. So what you have here remain would be the PRBC. So mag-a-add lang tayo ng cryoprotective agent once you have already your PRBC. We are not adding it in the whole blood. So what will be the significance of your additive solution aside from allowing your unit of the blood here to have a longer expiration? So from 35 with your CPD-A1 magiging 42 days na siya. Another one, since when you are doing the component preparation, you are removing the plasma, di ba? So once you try to remove the plasma, leaving only the PRBC, so some essential nutrients na makikita sa plasma natin, since na-remove ang plasma, has been lost already. So since tinanggal ang plasma, nawawala na essential nutrients which are needed by the RBC for its survival. So as a replacement for those nutrients which has been lost because of your removal of the plasma, then you replace that one by addition of your additive solution. Another one, so if you are having this PRBC, diba, so magiging highly concentrated ang ating unit of the blood, sobrang lapot niya. Ang problem with highly viscous na unit of the blood is when you are transfusing it to the recipient. Okay, so may tendency na magbabara ang blood sa blood set. Kung ito ang, for example, kung ito ang blood mo dito, tapos may daanan dito. So, kung ganun siya kalapot kasi wala siya masyadong liquid portion because you try to remove that one since you are doing your component preparation. So, it would have the tendency na magkakaroon ng, magbablock ito, magkakaroon ng blockage, baka hindi matuloy-tuloy ang entire unit of the blood to be transfused. Okay, with that, by addition of your additive solution, you try to reduce here the viscosity of your unit of the blood, PRBC, by decreasing here. So, kung ito lang siya, approximately that gives you a 70 to 80% na hematocrit. Sobrang lapot niya. But upon addition of your additive solution, it could reduce this one to 50 to 60% na lang. So, hindi siya ganun kalapot. And therefore, it will be easy for you, for the nurse, to transfuse this entire unit of the blood to the recipient. The third one allows more harvesting the platelets and plasma from your unit. So, saan ginagamit ang your additive solution? So, this is being used here primarily for the transfusion of the infants or children. Pero kasi there are some physicians wherein they are not that very confident about the additive solution kasi chemical reagent ito. So, they're not really relying on it as the best na unit of the blood that should be given to the infants or the children. So, pinaka-preferred actually for transfusion to infants and newborns at the CPDA1 na lang. But then again, pwede mong gamitin itong additive solution. Okay, the next, we have here the RBC freezing. So, it's a method here wherein you try to frozen the unit of the blood and store that one at negative temperature. And you're able to store that one for as long as 10 years. Only that nasa frozen state ang unit of the blood. So, the RBC freezing is basically for the storage of rare autologous blood. Pag sabi autologous, ikaw ang donor, ikaw din ang recipient. So, sobrang rare ng mga blood nila. It's because here, baka panangailangan sila ng blood in the future, baka wala silang mahanap na available na unit of blood in the blood bank, ref, or blood bank. So, you just need to store their blood ngayon na healthy pa sila. Like ito yung mga mga like AB negative na mga recipients or patient. So, they could do that one for frozen red blood cells. Okay, what you are adding here in order for that to stay alive or viable here, even if you try to store that one at negative temperature, you are adding here a cryoprotective agent. Your cryoprotective agent could be penetrating. Pag sinabing penetrating, you're penetrating na cryoprotective agent in the form of your glycerol. We have your high concentration 40% and low concentration 20%. Pag penetrating, if this one is our RBC, itong glycerol na to papasok dito sa loob. Okay, dito siya. Ang water dito, okay, your cryoprotective agent try to allow here to maintain here that the water here inside your RBC would not able to leak out para hindi ma-dehydrate when you store that one for the longer period of time. As long as 10 years para viable pa rin ito even after 10 years. Okay, whereas pag sinabing non-penetrating, ito yung hydroxyethyl starch natin is non-penetrating ng cryoprotective agent. Pag sinabing non-penetrating, hindi siya pumapasok dito sa loob ng RBC natin. Pero, dito lang siya sa labas ng ating RBC membrane, serving here para siyang coating lang ng RBC natin. And therefore, still again, could still also prevent here the leakage pa din ng water natin to prevent your RBC to be dehydrated throughout the 10 years. Only that this is non-penetrating. Okay, so we have here the difference between your high glycerol and your low glycerol concentration. So, initial freezing temperature here for high glycerol is negative 80. And you could have here the maximum negative 65 versus 196 and 120 maximum here with your 20%. Okay, another one, we have here need to control the freezing. So, no need here for the 40%. It's because here, even if the unit of blood has been thawed or natunaw na siya, you could still refrozen. Okay pa din ang unit ng blood natin. However, here in the 20%, you need to really control here the freezing temperature. It's because here once your frozen red cell here has been thawed or melted already, it could not be refrozen again. For the refrigerator, so we are using mechanical refrigerator here for the 40% and the liquid nitrogen refrigerator here for the 20% glycerol. If you want to transport the unit of the blood, this one has been frozen with your 40%, it should have transported here with your dry ice. And that one, on the other hand, if that one is your low glycerol here, should be transported with the liquid nitrogen. Okay, so we have here the procedure when you're doing your RBC freezing. So basically, what we are using here as our component unit here when we are doing the RBC freezing would be the PRBC, not the whole blood. So after you try to remove their plasma, after your component preparation, your PRBC could be frozen here by addition of your cryoprotective agent. And most likely, so if your primary blood bag has been collected with your CPD, your CPD2D, and even your ACD, then you could frozen that one within 6 days of the blood collection. So dapat ganun lang, hindi ka go beyond the 6 days. Hindi na siya magiging maganda ang unit ng blood natin if you have collected your blood more than 6 days. And your anticoagulant are those ACD, CPD, CPD2D, or even your CPD-A1. But if your unit of blood has been collected with your additive solution, you could frozen that one up to 42 days. Then after that one, you try to frozen your unit of the blood at this temperature. Again, that would be expired up to 10 years. Then if you wanted here to use the unit of the blood here, the frozen RBC, so before you transfuse the unit of the blood, you need to thaw that one. Thawing process here is just melting your frozen RBC. You could melt that one by running water or even your water bath here at 37 degrees Celsius for 15 minutes. And after that one, you need to remove here your glycerol, because glycerol here is a toxic substance and shouldn't be present within our blood circulation. So that's why you need to remove the glycerol which has been added as your cryoprotective agent. You call that one as your deglycerolization process, or you call this one your washing steps. So since you are washing it by addition of your decreasing concentration of the sodium chloride, it become an open system. Although you could have your alternative naman, you could have performed this one through your closed system. We have instrument that could perform that one. But most likely, your deglycerization process is an open system by decreasing concentration of your sodium chloride. You start here with a 12%, followed by 1.6, followed by 0.9%, and end up with 0.2% dextrose in your normal saline solution. Okay, that's to remove your glycerol here effectively. For the expiration, since this is an open system, because of your deglycerization process, so the expiration of this one is 24 hours. You need to transfuse this unit to the blood within 24 hours and store that one at the refrigerator temperature at 1 to 6 degrees Celsius. Again, there's instrument that could perform here the automated washing step. So we have your ACP 215 instrument. So pag closed system, ang washing natin or deglycerization process. So your thawed na frozen RBC here would eventually have an expiration of 15 days, provided you store that one at 1 to 6 degrees Celsius.